Hey everyone, this is Darrell Evans of the 1984 World Champion Detroit Tigers. My favorite show to be on is the Sports Circus with Big Sal.
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the MTV studio, AAMP Television. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDA prime Angus and Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, and of course the king of all those gigantic cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. Best I've ever had, probably the best you ever have as well. Check them out at UppercutChops.com. That's UppercutChops.com. Or give them a call, find out what's for dinner. 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100 for UppercutChops.com. All right, and a big welcome in to everybody listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates and independents from coast to coast. Everybody watching on pick your favorite cable provider, Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, Spectrum, WOW, Charter, and independent cable affiliates where applicable, as well as Hotel TV when applicable. And also everybody on all of our streaming platforms and on Facebook on Chicago Food Favorites. Check that out, folks. Fun group. Talk about your favorite foods, favorite restaurants, favorite recipes. And make some friends, have some fun. Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. All right, let's jump into it, folks. It's Major League Baseball. We've got the trade deadline literally right around the corner. Talked a little bit about it a couple of days ago, and guess what? Now we're down to deal making, and things are happening. But let's take a quick look at who needs to make deals and who's in the driver's seat and who isn't. And as we look at these standings, some things jump out at me, but others maybe not so quickly. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a better look at this from the wild card standings. And the wild card standings, sure, we have our division leaders, right? But then again, we have these wild cards. And this is where the teams that are going to be the buyers really are going to show themselves. And of course, the sellers certainly will demonstrate that. But the bigger question is, what is the amount of games back where you draw the line? And in some cases, you may have enough hitting to get there. In some cases, you may have enough pitching, but not enough hitting. And so there are some considerations here. And of course, in the American League, your leaders, of course, are the Tigers, Blue Jays, and Astros. Now, if you look at those teams right now, real quick, you'll say, well, geez, the Blue Jays are up 4 games on the New York Yankees. And so that's a pretty sizable lead. Now, mind you, they've lost their last 4 games, but they're still up 4 games, and the Yankees are in a wild card slot right now. And then you say, well, the Red Sox, well, geez, it looks like they are essentially tied, but not really tied, if you will, because there's a lot of games in hand for the Red Sox over the Blue Jays. And so you've got the Blue Jays with 5 games. Actually, it's really about the same amount of games. So you get 5 games more in the win column for Toronto, and you've got 5 more losses. Now, that's a really big one. The loss column's a big deal, right? You can't make those ones up. So Boston has 5 more losses. They sit 5 games back behind the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, in the wild card, though, the Red Sox are tied for that wild card slot with the Seattle Mariners. And we're going to jump down in below the Tampa Bay Rays over to the AL Central, because the Tigers, even though they're 4-6 of their last 10, they've won their last few games, they still sit 9 games in front of Cleveland in the American League Central. Despite what Cleveland and Kansas City and everybody else have been doing, let's face it, this is the Tigers division right now. And even the Royals sit 9.5 back and 2 games under, a disappointing 2 under, but they haven't really gone on that big run yet. So The Royals have it in them, but we're going to get to these wildcard standings in just a moment. The Royals are in striking distance, so to say, of that wild card. Everybody else forget it. The Astros sit 3.5 games above the Seattle Mariners. Both teams are 5-5 in their last 10, but that's a very interesting matchup because Seattle went and just beat the living daylights out of Houston in a recent series, and the Texas Rangers sit 1 game back in that wild card. We're going to get to them in a minute. Angels sit 5 games back. Now, over in the National League, real quick, it's the Mets that are essentially, we'll just call them tied with the Philadelphia Phillies. Just seems like nobody wants to win that division. But both teams are really about 17 games over 500, which is pretty darn good, 16, 17 games over. And so both of these teams are right there. And the Marlins sit 4 games under, but that's a whole nother discussion. The Braves, forget it. The National League Central has the Brewers out in front by 2 games, with the Cubs 4 games up on everybody in the wild card. They're the first wild card team in the National League. And, of course, the Phillies are the other wild card team there. And then there's a battle for the next one. Now, the Cincinnati Reds, a very interesting situation. They sit 4 games over 500. And I actually said at the beginning of the season they were going to end up 4 games over 500, if you know what I mean. So the Reds are doing exactly as I thought they would. I knew they would be improved. Ellie has really stepped it up. But guess what? The rest of the team, I think it's a team still searching for part of their identity. The Cardinals should be sellers. They're 1 game over 500, sit 10 games back in the division. Over in the National League, it's the Dodgers still playing 500 ball, just like the Padres. The Dodgers still sit essentially 4 games above the Padres and 8.5 above the Giants. The Diamondbacks, I guess they've just packed it in already. Not really sure. So let's get over to these wild card standings and let's think about this whole buyer and seller thing, because this is really what this is about right now. And we say, well, who is in striking distance and who is really secure in their spot? And honestly, in the wild card standings, I don't think there's anybody really secure. The Yankees lost Aaron Judge for a period of about 10 games or so, whatever. Seattle is playing pretty good ball, and they're buying right now. Seattle is buying, and they are going to make a really big push. Last year, Seattle had a pretty good squad, but they could not hit the baseball. They have great pitching. They could not hit the baseball. And how about the Red Sox? Even after dealing off Rafi Devers, they sit in the last wild card spot. Now, Texas, who hasn't even had a big run yet, they're only 1 game out, and they're 5 games over 500, so they are certainly within striking distance. And let's face it, they're even in striking distance in the division, albeit they are 5 games over, and Houston is 14 games over. It's not that many games, folks. We've seen complete collapses, and of course, one of those massive collapses was the Angels back in the mid-1990s, where they had a 10-game lead over the Seattle Mariners, and it was the Mariners that took them to a 1-game playoff. I flew up to Seattle for that game. The big unit was pitching in that game. What a hell of a game that was. And it was Seattle that moved on. And it was a complete collapse by the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim of Orange County, the Orange Current of Interstate 5 of Earth. Anyway, longest name in sports. And so in the American League, you say, well, the Cleveland Guardians sit 4 back of the wild card slot, 1 under. And I mentioned the Royals earlier. The Royals haven't hit that run yet. The Royals are going to be buyers, I believe. They've got enough pieces over there. It took them a while to get started. They had a slow start. Detroit got off to a pretty quick start. But I think the Royals are going to be buyers in the grand scheme of things. Cleveland, on the other hand, likely will be selling, which is crazy to imagine because they sit 1 game in front of the Kansas City Royals. And now even if you go 1 step further, the Angels are 5 games back of the wild card. And they're not out of it, but you got to see, they're going to have to leapfrog teams in their division. They're going to have to leapfrog Texas and Seattle just to compete in this division and to compete for the wild card. So that's going to be awfully tough. They got a lot of games against those teams left, and the same thing goes for the Twinkies. And so you really cut it off at the Royals at 4.5. Now, over in the National League, looking at the leaders, it is the Brewers. Like I said, they're 2 in front of the Cubs. Boy, the Brewers are playing great ball. And I have to say, folks, I am very excited about that. I'm just not a Cub fan. It is what it is, folks. But when I look at what the Brewers are doing, they're playing complete baseball. They're winning at every aspect of the game. I mean, from top to bottom in the lineup, they're stealing bags, they're throwing leather. I was watching the Cubs phenom Pete Crow Armstrong today, and he's a hell of a player. Really is. I'm just glad I have about 13 of his rookie baseball cards. But he's one of those guys that is going to be good for a very, very long time. Actually, the Cubs ought to lock him up for probably, the rest of his life as far as the contract goes. But the Cubs have a lot of pieces. They don't have a starting pitcher. They need a starting pitcher, and they need bullpen help, whereas the Brewers already have the pieces they need. So there's the big difference between the squads. But when you look at that wild card piece, the Cubs sit above everybody in the National League, and Philadelphia is one game behind them. So you've got 62 wins versus 61 wins, and they both play the same amount of games. So these two teams are doing pretty well and likely are going to be in the picture. And the Padres sit in the third and final wild card spot. And boy, the Padres are an interesting squad because they're talking about dealing their ace, Dylan Cease, possibly to the New York Mets or maybe somebody else. And the bigger question is, what's going to happen with the Padres? Are they sellers? I don't think they're really sellers, and it would be very irresponsible to basically get rid of a guy that they made a big deal for in the first place, but yet sit the Cincinnati Reds 2.5 back of the last wild card spot and 4 games over 500. And then there's the Giants and the Cardinals sit 4 games back, and that's where you draw the line right there because Miami's not doing anything. And so the question is, what is Cincinnati going to do? I think Cincinnati's going to buy. I think the Giants will be buying, but I believe that Perry Manassian will have the green light to make the purchases, and I believe the Cardinals are going to be sellers, even though they're 4 games back as well. This is a really interesting race. We're going to come back with baseball in just a few minutes here on the Sports Circus. Don't go anywhere. I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it out here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
If you'd like to borrow up to $100,000 and get pre-approved in minutes, call the number we'll give you at the end of this commercial. Our lending partners have already loaned millions of dollars to individuals just like you, and we're ready to lend you up to $100,000 if you qualify. Even if your credit is not perfect, you could use the money to pay off high-interest credit cards, for home renovations, or consolidate existing debt. You can get flexible, easy-to-pay terms. The consultation to find out if you qualify is free. To find out if you qualify for our special financing program, call this toll-free number 24 hours a day. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. That's 800-335-1376. Important terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Loan amount, annual percentage rate, and term will vary depending on creditworthiness. Applying does not guarantee approval. Account approval is subject to verification and confirmation of your credit history and acceptance by a lender. If you choose to apply for a loan through us, a consumer report will be obtained to evaluate your creditworthiness in connection with your application for credit.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UppercutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UppercutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UppercutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door. store without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at uppercutchops.com or call 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Or make your selection directly at uppercutchops.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Thank you, Roy, and welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by our friends over at the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. That's the College of Southern Nevada Athletics, csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. Check them out, folks. All right, a big welcome back to everybody listening in on all of our affiliates, including our friends waking up with us over in Atlanta, WDJY 99.1 FM. All those driving home with us from Montgomery, Alabama, over to Columbus, Georgia, listening in on WAUD, home of the Atlanta Braves. Thanks for joining us up and down the heartland, all the way out to the West Coast. Everybody driving between Las Vegas and sunny Southern California, listening in on Highway Country Radio 101.5 FM and 107.3 FM. Thanks for joining us here. That's home of the Vegas Golden Knights and the Raiders. And also our friends out in Honolulu, CBS Sports 1500 KHKA. That's home of the 49ers, New York Yankees, and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Plus everybody else on all streaming platforms. Television, you know where you're at. Hotel TV as well, where applicable. Thanks for everybody joining us. By the way, folks, if this is the first time for you listening in, and you're looking for maybe a couple of nights right here in Vegas or maybe Orlando, Florida, or in Branson, Missouri, check this out. Vacation Buddies wants to give you a couple of free nights in any one of those locations if you can answer this simple trivia question. Here it is. Which of these NBA superstars won 6 NBA titles? Is it A, Magic Johnson, B, Shaquille O'Neal, C, Kobe Bryant, or D, Michael Jordan? If you know the answer, call 888-576-5777, 888-576-5777. Vacation Buddies is not affiliated with this station, but they want to give you a couple of nights in Vegas or Orlando, Florida, or in Branson, Missouri. If you can answer that simple trivia question, call them right now, 888-576-5777. All right, folks. That was the quiet applause, and there's the loud applause. Okay, listen, we were just covering the wild card possibilities, and we also looked at the standings, and the standings, we saw the Cincinnati Reds were sort of on the cusp of things. And you know what? Just for the Reds, here's a nice round of applause. Okay. And we do that because joining us is our longtime producer, and that would be Colonel Bucky, who's actually from Ohio and a lifelong Cincinnati everything fan. Colonel Bucky, welcome to the show.
Greetings, Sal. It's good to be with you. Glad to talk a little Reds baseball.
Yeah, and so there's a conundrum right now because the Reds, they're sitting back about 2.5 games. And you wonder, look, the Padres are playing pretty good ball, and they're taking the last playoff spot in the National League right now. But looking at the Reds, they're playing good enough. Again, they're 4 over 500, right? The bigger question is, are they buyers or sellers, and why?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. And I think we talked about this earlier in the year where the Reds were probably going to end up maybe 4, maybe 6 games over 500 for the season. I think that is consistently where they're tracking right now.
Right.
Now, yeah, I mean, the deadline's coming up. What are you going to do? That's a good question. I think you're close enough that maybe you can be a buyer this time around and take that next step. You got to figure the time clock is on with Ellie De La Cruz. Face it, Cincinnati is a smaller market. At some point in his career, when the Reds lose control of his future, he's probably going to end up on one of the coast teams, whether it's East or West. That's to be determined. But when I look at the Reds team now, the time is now. So I guess the long way to answer your question there, Sal, is, yeah, I think they are a buyer. I think they're legit, and they do have a chance to make the playoffs, and why not? I mean, give it a shot now, because a few years down the road, you may not be able to afford L.A. De La Cruz.
Right, and if you look at what the Reds have done all year, I mean, the true mark of a playoff team is they're scoring more than they're giving up. Well, they've scored 41 more than they're giving up, which actually that's double the output for the most part of what the Padres, we'll just leave it as double because the Padres, boy, they could score in bunches. But I guess the bigger question is, do they commit to Ellie by showing that they are buyers rather than doing nothing or selling?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, you have a few assets, but, I mean, obviously, everybody needs pitching. You got to have pitching, and then you have to give something up. So what do you do in that situation? I'm glad I'm not a GM, especially at this time of the year, because those guys are probably not getting any sleep at all, and haven't been for the past week or so.
An interesting thing to look at, hold that thought for a second. An interesting thing to look at is the teams that are contending right now in the wild card race, just as the division leaders. They're all to the plus in differential, a fairly significant number. However, the Padres are sitting at about 25 on the plus side, and over in the American League, it's the Blue Jays that are sitting about 22 at the plus side, even though they're a division leader. Now, they're 4.5 up. We'll just call them 4 games over the Yankees, and they're playing really good ball. But in the National League, when you look beyond the Reds, there's a big drop-off that would be to the Giants. Although the Giants sit a game and a half behind them, it's just that the Reds are getting more timely hits in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and they've had that kind of a season. And, you know, that's when you know the timing is right, because they've been on the cusp of this kind of a club for the past couple of years. They just haven't been able to get over that hump. And that's always a hard thing to do. But like you and I have spoken before, where when you look at this team, they're right there. But are they there enough? So having said that, I would like to see them pick up an extra pitcher at this time of the year. Let's see what happens.
Their closer is just failing miserably. I think Pagan is not the guy. And so you turn to the talent pool that's out there and you say, well, is it really a closer that we need? Or maybe the possibility of middle relief, which could be a number 3 or a 4 pitcher on another team that could be stuck in a middle relief role. Remember how Dennis Eckersley flourished in that role?
Absolutely.
And he was just an average pitcher.
He was a starter for all those years, and then he switched to the other end. Now, I remember when Chapman came up with the Reds, they were debating, and we're going back a few years because Dusty Baker, another one of the teams that Dusty managed and did well as the Reds manager, they were saying, should we bring him up? Because he came from Cuba, and you had this fresh product, and you were ready to mold him like clay. Are we going to use him as a starter, or are we going to use him as a closer? I mean, the guy throws 102 miles per hour. And then, whatever reason, they decided to go with the closer role, and I think Chapman was leaning in that direction anyway.
Do you think the Reds should have did that with Hunter Green?
Yes. But with Chapman, though, when you look back, he actually wanted to only come in for an inning or so a day rather than work that hard. That's my perception, okay? Because I saw this guy, 102 miles per hour. There's another one, 101. This guy can fire it past anybody. And to maintain that, not everybody is Nolan Ryan. Let's be honest about it. But I think when you look at the totality of everything, that was probably the best move for his career. But I don't know. I really do believe that they're going to be buyers this year. I got my fingers crossed.
Okay, so in the last minute of the segment, as I look at this, I say they sit in the right spot. They're just a couple of games out of the last playoff spot. The Padres, they are obviously tangled up in a battle with themselves because they don't even know if they're going to be buyers or sellers, really, because they're talking about making deals with Dylan Cease, who's their ace. And they've seen that Yu Darvish has been nothing but Yu garbage, if you know what I mean. He hasn't really done anything. Ever since he tried to come back from an injury, just hasn't done a darn thing. And so the Padres, it's a conundrum because if they sell off Dylan Cease, but they sit in the third wild card spot, you ask yourself, why would they do such a thing when that's their ace in the first place? So here, I'll tell you what, when we come back from break, I'd like to pick that up because it's an interesting dialogue, no less. But it's sort of a conundrum because you have a team that's literally sitting in the last spot and you look over in the American League, you have a similar situation with some of these other squads. I mean, what do the Red Sox do? The Red Sox have big question marks just like the San Diego Padres. So tell you what, folks, when we come back, we're going to talk about that. That's Colonel Bucky, our longtime producer and friend of the show, and your ringmaster Sal, which I am. We'll see you in just a few minutes right here on the Sports Circus. Don't go anywhere. I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it out here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Hello, Americans. It's Uncle Sam here. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes to the IRS or state, don't worry. I've got important news that may help you negotiate a lower tax bill. In today's economy, the IRS has released a variety of new rules and is offering more flexible terms to help Americans looking to settle their IRS debt. If you apply today, we may be able to lift your wage garnishments and release a freeze on your bank assets or business. Our team of tax professionals can resolve your case and stop collection actions against you. Even if you've been audited or haven't filed a return in years, they can help. Call right now and find out if you qualify to settle your IRS debt for far less than what you owe. Pick up your phone right now and call us for a free $500 IRS tax review. Don't wait. Here's the number.
Call right now. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. For the last time, that's 800-950-2049.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the MTV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by the Sports Circus. Make sure you check out thesportscircus.com for our upcoming guests, our prior guests, recorded shows, which can be found on Apple, Amazon, Audible, Spotify, Pandora, iHeart, YouTube, Stitcher, Deezer, plus a whole bunch of others. Also, make sure you check out the partners page. Lots of great partners at thesportscircus.com. Our favorite is Al's number one Italian beef, 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. That's Al's number one Italian beef, 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. Folks, if you can't make it over there for some great food, check them out at alsbeef.com. That's alsbeef.com. They are the creators of the Italian beef sandwich, a famous sandwich, and boy, is it good. 117 years ago, they did it. They've been in business since 1938. They had a storefront, so they actually put that sandwich together many, many, many years prior to and just served it throughout the neighborhood because it was one of their staples. But it turned into a beef stand, which turned into an empire. Check out Al's Beef at alsbeef.com. Boy, is it good. Nice round of applause for our friends over there. All right, in case you're just joining us, in the last segment, right before we started, Vacation Buddies was giving away a couple of nights in Las Vegas, Branson, Missouri, or Orlando, Florida, if you could answer a very simple trivia question. And here's the question in case you missed out. Which of these NBA superstars won 6 NBA titles? Is it A, Magic Johnson, B, Shaquille O'Neal, C, Kobe Bryant, and D, Michael Jordan? If you know the answer, call 888-576-5777, 888-576-5777. Vacation Buddies is not affiliated with this station, but they want to give you a couple of nights in Vegas, Orlando, or Branson, Missouri. Call them right now, 888-576-5777, with the simple answer to that simple trivia question. All right. Now, getting back to it. So we were talking Reds baseball, talking Cardinals baseball, talking this baseball, that baseball. Well, guess what? There's been trade trackers out there. And actually, the Boston Red Sox came up because they have a very similar conundrum as the San Diego Padres. And we think about what has happened so far. Let's go back to earlier trades this season, and not too terribly long ago. We'll go back to maybe June 15th, and it was, of course, Rafi Devers in a real shocker, a real blockbuster that nobody had this one happening. And it was the Giants, the San Francisco Giants, acquiring Rafi Devers from Boston for Kyle Harrison, Jordan Hicks, and Jose Bello, and James Tibbs III. I mean, that was a really big deal that nobody saw coming. I tell you what, in my circle, and I used to play ball, I didn't know anybody that would do that deal. But, I mean, look at it this way. There was this big contract that came along with Devers and got off to a real bad start, but then he started kind of coming around a little bit. I mean, Vinny Pasquantino did the same thing, starting to come around quite a bit. And let's face it, Devers in a second year of that 10-year, $313 million extension, big number. So San Francisco just had to eat a whole bunch of money, and they're really banking on this. And then you say, well, hey, look, what was the cause? Well, guess what? Alex Bregman went over from the Houston Astros to play third base for the Boston Red Sox, and Alex Bregman, a Gold Glover. I mean, he's a hell of a third baseman. never mind a little bit of time on the shelf. Alex Bregman was a solid pickup. Of course, I'm happy I got him on my fantasy baseball team. But I see what Alex does on the field, and I have to say, this guy's got a really, really good glove. And, oh, by the way, the guy can hit lights out, too. So, also, let's go to a recent deal, which was the Yankees acquiring third baseman Ryan McMahon from the Rockies for a left-handed pitcher, Griffin Herring, and a right-handed pitcher in Josh Gross. So, yes, although the Yankees were linked, I should say, to many other deals, right, going back to Eugenio Suarez, and something just made the Yankees say, we're not going to pay that kind of money because Suarez is going to demand a bunch of money, and by the way, the Diamondbacks are going to want a ton back. So it was a very good third baseman, a very underrated third baseman from the Rockies and Ryan McMahon that went over to the Yankees at a very, very good price, very affordable deal. And look, McMahon is under contract for $16 million in 2026 and 27, while Suarez as a free agent would command gigantar numbers. And it just really makes no sense. So the Yankees send over their number 8, number 21 over to Colorado, and Colorado actually gets a nice win in that one, and the Yankees get what they want. That one worked out well. All right, so then we go to more recent deals, very recent, where the Mariners acquired big Josh Naylor, and I'm not saying big because he's tall, but this guy is good. He is a gamer, and he's one of my favorite players in baseball. Josh Naylor is just one of those guys, man. He hits them when they count, and he can throw leather at first base too. So they picked up him from the Diamondbacks, and they sent over Brandon Garcia over to the Arizona Diamondbacks. So the Mariners got really well on that one, and they also gave away Ashton Izzy. But it was the Mariners saying, last year we really laid an egg with our acquisitions on offense, so let's go ahead and bring some real offense in. So they went and did just that. So now you've got the home run leader right now in Cal Raleigh, also with a clutch hitting Josh Naylor. And I really believe that Seattle is going to make a play and bring in Eugenio Suarez, bring him back to Seattle. It would make a little bit of sense to me because both of those guys, in Naylor and Suarez in Arizona, why wouldn't you bring a couple of teammates right over to Seattle? That makes a lot of sense, and that would really make Seattle probably one of the favorites in the American League because they would have 3 bona fide, real strong clutch hitters. And let's face it, they have still arguably the best pitching in baseball as a staff. Now, how about the Royals making a small deal, and they got themselves an outfielder, but I don't think it's the outfielder that they are going to keep. I almost think, and I don't know, don't quote me on this one, I think the Royals make that deal for Randall Grichuk from the Diamondbacks for Andrew Hoffman, but I really believe they're going to use Randall Grichuk in another deal and get rid of him right away and get themselves the real target for an outfielder. And I wouldn't be surprised to see the Royals make a trade for the White Sox, Luis Robert Jr. Yes, it is a division deal, but the White Sox are not really looking to win this year, next year, the year after. They've got a bunch of young talent, but I think they could do really well if they made a deal with the Royals, because by the time the Royals, or better yet, by the time the White Sox are ready to compete, like Bobby Witt Jr. will be well into his career, and the Royals will have him to build around, but the White Sox will then be an up-and-coming team, and they'll have the draft picks and the prospects that will grow up, and the White Sox are actually looking a lot better these days. So I think the Royals could be a front runner, well, not a front runner, but they are a sleeper probably for Luis Robert Jr. Now, when you also think of these other deals, you say, well, who else has made deals? Oh, that's right. Just recently, the Blue Jays acquired a right-handed pitcher. This was interesting. And they just picked him up from the Orioles, and that's Sir Anthony Dominguez. So in a doubleheader, Dominguez was striking out the Blue Jays players in Game 1, and then between games, the deal was done, and he suited up in the Blue Jays jersey, and what was he doing? He was striking out Orioles players. I got to tell you, that was one of the cooler things I've seen yet. And I think that'll probably be the story of all of the entire trade deadline and whatnot. It's just one of those stories that you're scratching your head like, wow, did that actually happen? Now, the Mets also picked up a left-handed pitcher, some kind of a closer of sorts, who I don't really think that was the right move for the Mets. But then again, what do I know? They pick up Gregory Soto from the Orioles. It seems like the Orioles are in full-blown fire sale for Wellington Aracena, a right-handed pitcher, also Cameron Foster. So they gave up a couple of broken Coke machines for a broken Coke machine. So I don't think the Mets really did anything just yet. The Mets are probably trying to go get Dylan Cease from the San Diego Padres because they need to add another pitcher. Now, the Tigers picked up Chris Paddock, which I don't like this deal at all, and Randy Dobnak. I don't think that the Tigers and Twins, look, the Twins got the best of them here. And so actually the Twins end up getting Enrique Jimenez, a catcher, back. So with Reese Olson sidelined by a right shoulder strain, the Tigers addressed the rotation with the acquisition of Paddock, sending their number 14 prospect Jimenez, that catcher I mentioned, to the Twinkies in a deal. And Paddock, a pending free agent anyway, has an abysmal ERA of 4.95 over 21 starts. I got to tell you, that's not very good. And Dobnak, this guy also, he's 30 years of age and basically the same age as Paddock. He's 29, whatever. He's gone with some starting experience. So, again, he's just a bag of baseballs to go along with the deal. And it's really a salary dump as well for Minnesota. I mean, what's the deal with this 5 years, an extra $9.25 million extension for Dobnak? Why pay it? Because the guy is not really panning out. So really, it was the Twins with a better deal over the Tigers. And there's one of those division trades that I had mentioned that you could see, for example, between the Royals and White Sox. That already happened with two teams in that same division with the Twinkies and the Tigers. So when we come back, we're going to talk Yankees baseball and what they're doing on the trade side. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come here on the Sports Circus. Back here in a few minutes, folks. And here we go.
Do you know someone with a drug or alcohol problem? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything. Stop the drug and alcohol nightmare. Are drug and alcohol problems hitting you too close to home? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything.
800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. That's 800-831-1560.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
If you served in the Marine Corps, by now you know about the contaminated water problem at Camp Lejeune. If you were stationed or worked at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1987, you probably have a lot of questions. We have some answers. You could be entitled to compensation. Billions of dollars are being allocated to pay for damages to anyone stationed at Camp Lejeune during that time. Unfortunately, it appears that officials may have known the contaminated water problem existed and did little to protect their men. The Semper Fi Code was not honored. If you or someone in your family has developed a serious illness, including various forms of cancer, call this Camp Lejeune legal support line right now. You can't turn back the clock and change what happened, but you can certainly call right now and learn your rights as a Marine. Here's the number.
Call 800-335-7196. 800-335-7196. That's 800-335-7196.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt. with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
Hey everybody, this is Brian Urlacher. Welcome back to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP television. Folks, again, make sure you check out thesportscircus.com for upcoming guests, our prior guests, record shows, and also check out the store. Lots of great items at the store. That's the sportscircus.com store. Hats, hoodies, t-shirts, ball caps, beanies, pants, coats, you name it. All kinds of great stuff, even back to school items for your kids. Check it out at thesportscircus.com. A shameless plug for the Sports Circus. All right, the extended applause for the circus. All right, welcome back to everybody. Radio, TV, you know who you are. So we've been talking baseball here, and we're going to continue here in the last segment. Now we're going over some of the trade deadline, what has happened and what will happen or what could happen, who's buyers and who's sellers and whatnot. Thinking about the New York Yankees, recently they made a deal for infielder Ahmed Rosario from the Nats and also for Clayton Beeter and outfielder Brown Martinez. I mean, look, one day after acquiring Ryan McMahon from the Yankees, they were still busy, so they picked up some players. I mean, Rosario's a 29-year-old. I mean, the guy's pretty good. He plays multiple positions. He's a good Swiss Army knife out there. Slashing 270, 310, 426. He's hitting pretty okay. 5 homers and 158 plate appearances. But I just don't think that was really what the Yankees are looking for. They did really well with Ryan McMahon. Then they kind of, in my opinion, laid an egg with the Rosario and Beeter and Martinez deal. I don't like it. The bigger question is, what is the Yankees going to do right at the deadline? We're going to see what's going to happen there. Now, the Royals also, as I mentioned the Royals before, I think they're a player for Lewis Robert, even though they did pick up Grichuk from the Arizona Diamondbacks. They acquired a second baseman, Adam Frazier, from the Pirates for a broken Coke machine, as I like to put it, a utility shortstop. We'll just leave it like that. So it's sort of like they've tried to plug a dam, but they're not really getting what they want. Meanwhile, when you look at what the Milwaukee Brewers are doing, now the Brewers are really flying under the radar the entire time. I got to tell you, the Brewers are really doing it. Yes, they acquired a catcher in Danny Jensen, so they've got a backup in case Contreras gets hurt. So, I mean, look at it this way. Contreras is still playing through a fractured left middle finger, so they need a little bit of backup. They had somebody in camp earlier, and they did have, I believe they had Alfaro. Yeah, they had Alfaro in their AAA team, and I don't know what's going on with Alfaro, but what I do know is I think that there are better choices, in my opinion. He's just, in my opinion, somebody that's sort of washed up, doesn't seem to, in my opinion, have his ducks in a row, and getting somebody like Jensen is actually a better choice. Somebody that really, I mean, look, the guy's local too. He's from Appleton, not too terribly far from Milwaukee anyway. Got off to a slow start with the Rays, but in 48 games since the beginning of May, I mean, the guy's hitting, OPS of 795, 10 homers, and let's face it, they're actually doing the right thing. So the Braves are another team that I'm a little confused about. But let's stick with these Brewers for a minute here. I talked about the Braves for a second because I saw them in a deal where they picked up Eric Fetty from the Cardinals for the proverbial player to be named later. I don't really like those kind of deals. But then again, I want to go back to the Brewers because the Brewers are a very interesting group. Not only have they taken first place over from the favored Cubs. So the Cubs are still favored to win the division. They're a minus 130 to the plus 110 for all you bettors out there. But when you look at what's going on in Milwaukee, got to tell you, folks, it's pretty exciting. Look, everybody likes a blockbuster deal, but sometimes it's those under-the-radar deals that you say, boy, that really worked out. And you take Quinn Priester. I mean, he won his 9th consecutive win for the Brewers recently. And Andrew Vaughn, who came over from the White Sox, and he has a ton of talent, a ton of skills, he's got the pieces. And he was technically going to be the long-run centerpiece for the White Sox, but they just ran out of gas altogether. And let's face it, it's Andrew Vaughn that's really coming through in the clutch and doing significant things. In the grand scheme of things, this guy is doing exactly what any team would have hoped he would do, especially the Milwaukee Brewers. And this guy is just hitting timely hits. He's a very streaky hitter on top of it, and I love that. But when you see what they've done, you say, well, we know what we're trying to do, but we're trying not to break the bank, and we're trying to get guys that are a better fit for the system rather than picking the big name and trying to make them fit into our system. And every athlete I know, current and former, they all say the same thing. You're a product of the system you're within. And I've seen that myself. And in many cases, it seems like Andrew Vaughn is a very, very good fit for the Brewers for a lot of reason. He's a lunch pail kind of guy. And let's face it, when you see what he did, he hit flashes of great in Chicago. So they made a deal with the White Sox back in, it was a couple months back, a few months ago, whatever it was. So it all come down to Aaron Savali requesting a trade. So they said, you know what, we need a trade partner. And Savali lived in the area. So let's just go 90 miles south of Milwaukee. Let's send him down to the White Sox. And Savali eats innings. And that's good news because he actually gets playing time with the White Sox. And Andrew Vaughn gets a team that's contending actually in first place right now. But that's a really good deal between these teams. And you ask, well, why didn't other teams make the deal? Well, there's a lot of regional deals that happen because players want to stay regional. So let's stick with the White Sox, talk about Lewis Robert Jr., because he's starting to pick up some momentum here. And look, this guy is starting to play like the Lewis Robert Jr. from a couple of years ago as an all-star. I mean, right now, it is the New York Metropolitans are the front runner, allegedly, to actually get Lewis Robert Jr., but is he going to take a similar path as Dylan Cease did from the White Sox? And he went over to the San Diego Padres, just like Gavin Sheets found himself where? In the San Diego Padres organization. It seems like they're the San Diego White Sox at this point. So are they going to pick up Lewis Robert Jr.? I think San Diego could be a destination, but you say, well, where the heck is he going to fit in that crowded outfield? Maybe they put him in left field because, well, they're having some issues with this player or that player here and there. Who knows? Maybe they could shore it up. You never know. But I also believe that the Royals are going to be big favorites for him, too. Everybody says, well, the Phillies need this and that. You know what the Phillies need? The Phillies need a closer in the worst possible way. They don't need any more bats. They got plenty of bats. And honestly, the Padres have plenty of bats, too. They really do. They get timely hits. You've got a couple of guys hitting really well. And don't forget, they've got the 3-time batting champion in Luis Arraez over on that squad as well. So I'm not so sure that they need another stick. Do they need another glove? And he is an above-average fielder, being Lewis Robert Jr., but is that really the destination? I guess that's the big question. I don't know about that. So you look at these trade rumors and you say, well, where do some of these other guys land? Because when one chip falls, it seems like everything else happens. And the bigger question of pitching goes to Sandy Alcantara. And where's he going to go? Because I don't think he's going to stick around with the Miami Marlins. Something tells me he's going to go to either, I wouldn't really say the Padres, but then the Padres need him. But the front runners are the Cubs, Blue Jays, Padres, Red Sox, and Mets. But why would the Padres be looking for a pitcher that has an ERA about the same or worse than Dylan Cease? What's that all about? If they're talking about getting rid of Dylan Cease, why would you do that? You got to get rid of Yu Darvish as well, if that's the case. So why are they going to try to bring in another pitcher that's not performing that well? I don't think that's going to be the case. He's not going to go to San Diego. He may go to the Mets. I don't know. The Mets just got back Sean Manaea. that really helps the Mets. The Red Sox, I don't know if they're buyers. I think it's the Jays and the Cubs that are the real buyers here. And so if I have to say where he could land, it would likely be the Toronto Blue Jays. And I say the Blue Jays because it's a different league, and the Blue Jays have maybe a couple of small spots to plug up a little bit, and it's a different league. So you could take that +5 ERA and flush it down the toilet because the American League hasn't really seen him. And so it seems like the Blue Jays are the best option for Sandy Alcantara, but who's going to throw them more money, I guess, is really what it comes down to. I mean, think about what the Yankees are doing. Are the Yankees going to do anything from a pitching standpoint? Yeah, I mean, they're looking at Alcantara as well and Edward Cabrera, and there's a couple of really good righties that have some real upside. I mean, but also think about Arizona with their offers on Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly. I mean, that's a hell of a 1-2 punch, but Gallen hasn't done diddly this year. He just seems to have lost it. So are you better off gambling with Gallen over Alcantara? I would rather take the guy from the American League, or better yet, that the American League hasn't seen. So I would probably be more apt to go after Alcantara over Gallen. But Merrill Kelly is a solid pitcher, so he is probably the key to that deal. And I guess the next question is Eugenio Suarez. What happens with Gino? Where's Gino go? I still believe that Gino's going to go to Seattle. Now, that makes the most sense. I mean, look, it appears that, well, he did have a problem with an X-ray recently. There's CT scan and MRI on his right finger, so that could affect his performance. So I don't know if teams are going to be willing to pay that much for him. Now, back to Dylan Cease. He's at believe it or not, at the top of the Astros wish list. And the question is, are the Padres going to be selling their ace? Why would they do it? I just don't think he gets moved. I think it's just a lot of hot air, and they're using that to essentially lure another pitcher over so the Padres can make a run. They do sit in the last wild card spot right now in the grand scheme of things. And what about the Twins? Are the Twinkies going to go ahead and deal everybody off? I mean, they dealt off Paddock, but Paddock's not very good. That doesn't really matter. So I guess the question, you think about a guy like Joe Ryan and Johan Duran. Those are their two big pitchers. And, of course, everybody wants them, right? Red Sox, Yankees, Blue Jays, Marlins, Philly, or Mariners, Phillies, et cetera, et cetera. And so you've got a whole lot of this. What about Stephen Kwan? Stephen Kwan flies under the radar, and I like Stephen Kwan, one of the best leadoff hitters in baseball. The bigger question is now that Clase has been placed on the non-disciplinary paid leave through August 31st from possible gambling in baseball. And, of course, that always deserves an astounding round of boos. That's right. So we think about Clase basically being done for the year. And what's going to happen with guys like Stephen Kwan? I think Stephen Kwan could get moved. And this guy is one of the top leadoff hitters in baseball. And this guy could go to any team, any contender, because he really is a hustle guy. And what about Shane Bieber? Here's another guy that's sitting there on Cleveland's staff. We don't know what the hell's going on. This guy's going to make a rehab start real soon in AA Akron, and he's going to be right back in the game. So the question is, where does Kwan go, and do they deal Bieber as well? That's what I'd be interested in. And let's face it, there are so many of these trades, but the biggest chip in all of these from the closer standpoint is going to be Ryan Helsley from the Cardinals. Cardinals are going to get a huge haul back from him. Everybody needs a closer. Well, that's going to do it. I'm going to close the show out from that, and we're going to see you in 23 hours right here on your favorite station. Until then, so long, everyone.
If I was your mother and you had a drug problem, I'd grab you by the ear and make you call and get help. You can be in treatment tomorrow and start to get clean in 7 days. Follow Mom's advice and call the Detox and Treatment Helpline now. Write this number down.
800-814-8628. 800-814-8628. 800-814-8628. That's 800-814-8628.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.